Choices on choices, voices on voices. See the title through the piece of drama, feeding water spirit what my ego wants. I be chill pilling, yet I'm Holly Summer, caught between the auto one, Jolly Llama. Woo! I need an end of my ways, I need an end of my ways. This ain't the end of the days, this is a pivotal page. Decisions on decisions, am I a vessel of truth? As crooked as any politician. Not for when niggas don't have a pot to piss in. Mama's in the kitchen, rain is no forgiveness. Reeboks on the stitches.
Hello everybody, it's IceBergs, the crazy GPU guy today, and as you can see, I have 5 GPUs laid out in front of me today, and I'm going to be walking you through a huge guide on whether you should buy one of these 5 GPUs for Fortnite in 2018 to avoid the mining craze. Now my job as your GPU reviewer today is going to be to individually review each one of these GPUs in its weight class for Fortnite in 2018 to avoid that mining crisis. More than ever, my channel has been growing astronomically because of these GPU price hikes. Going to Newegg, Amazon, anywhere in the world right now, GPUs are way inflated. 1080 Ti's are $1,500, 1080s are $1,000, 1070s almost $1,000 as well. Listen, it doesn't have to be that way. What you need to look for is used price performance GPUs, which is what I'm going to introduce you to today with these 5 graphics cards laying in front of me today. The goal of used price performance hunting is to try and find a GPU that is perfect for you in your price point. And here, over the last year, I've reviewed every single one of these GPUs individually on my channel. I've taken huge in-depth looks to see what these GPUs can do in the modern day. And this is what we're going to be doing today to try to avoid the Bitcoin mining crisis right now. A quick note before we get into this, all these GPUs have also been affected during this mining hike. People are looking for these GPUs, so if you find one for a good deal in a neighborhood near you, you should pick it up. Now, let's get into the weight classes. So I'm going to be approaching this tech subject in a very different light than most tech channels might. Holy shit, I just got chlamydia. Anyway, I'm going to be classifying my GPUs in different weight classes like boxing. So you know how boxing has these weight classes like Bantamweight, Lightweight, Featherweight? I'm going to be classifying my GPUs in segments like that. So let's get into it. For our first weight class of the day, I have the 5670/ the 6670 in the Bantam weight class. You can usually find these GPUs online anywhere from $30 to $35 right now. They have went up a little bit since I did my little mini in-depth review a while ago, but the 6670 is the same thing, and you can usually find it about $10 cheaper for some reason. So if you're out looking for a 66/5670, you should probably lean towards more of the 6670. Anyway, with the 5670, you get a 775 MHz core clock along with a 4 GHz memory clock, 1 GB of GDDR5 and DirectX 11 capability. So the 5670 only pulls 64 watts from the PCIe slot, so it doesn't have any power connector, and it also has a single slot design, so you're pretty good here. So this GPU is going to be our lowest point and probably the most entry performance you're going to want to pick for Fortnite. So for our next weight class, we have the Featherweight class. This is the class I'm going to put the 550 Ti into. This is about a $35 to $50 GPU online right now and has went up in price, unfortunately, like the 5670, about $10 since my review. Moving up from the 5670 to the 550 Ti, we've doubled our performance. The 550 Ti runs at a 900 MHz core clock and a 4104 memory clock. The card has 1 GB of GDDR5 and also supports DirectX 12. The 550 Ti is a dual slot design and has one 6-pin. It pulls about 116 watts total through both of the buses. So for the middle of our line, the lightweight class, I have the GTX 570. This is about a $60 to $80 online GPU, and prices have been all over the place. You can get a 580 cheaper, sometimes a 580 is more, sometimes a 570 is cheaper. People are just buying GPUs everywhere, and this has also went up about $20 since my review. So keep that in mind if you're looking for one. Now I know I have a giant cooler on here, but just keep in mind I'm going to be running all these cards at stock, but if you want to see me put that cooler and test this thing in performance, you can go check that out up here. So the GTX 570 runs at 732 MHz core clock along with a 3800 MHz RAM clock. The GPU has 1.2 GB of GDDR5 and also supports DirectX 12. Even though our specs have increased, the power draw has also increased as well. It's not as bad as I thought it would be, but it is 219 watts through 2 6-pins. That is getting up there, so do keep that in mind if you're looking for one. For our next weight class, we have the middleweight class. This is the class I'm going to be putting the GTX 760 into. The GTX 760 is about a $90 to $130 price point card. The prices once again for this card are all over the place. It's also increased like everything else, and it's kind of getting hard to gauge performance and price on this thing. For the GTX 760, you get a 980 MHz core clock along with a 6008 MHz RAM clock. This thing comes packed with 2 GB of GDDR5 and also supports DirectX 12. The card also features a dual 6-pin design along with 170 watts TDP. For the very top of the line heavyweight class, I'm going to be putting the R9 380 into. Now this is a card I'm pretty sure most people do not own and or are going to be looking for, since the prices are all over the place for this bad boy. I'm seeing anywhere from $130 to $1,000 on eBay. So this is probably a card you're not going to want to be going out to get, but if you do have it, I'm going to try and gauge the performance for you. The R9 380 has a 970 MHz core clock along with a 5500 MHz RAM clock. Chips with 2 GB of GDDR5 and supports DirectX 12. I'm pretty sure most people out there have a 4 GB version of this card. I don't think many 2 GB versions are actually packed and sold. So do keep in mind that most of these cards are actually 4 GB. The card also has 2 6-pins and pulls 190 watts through both of those 6 pins. I'm also going to be using my good old trusty test bench, the Intel Xeon E5540, which is a 4-core, 8-thread Xeon overclocked to 4.1 GHz. It's running on a Gigabyte X58 UD3-hour SLI motherboard along with 18 GB of 1600 MHz DDR3 RAM. The HD 5670 was ran on a 16.2.1 driver. The R9 380 was ran on the 18.2.1 Adrenaline driver. The GTX 760, 570, and 550 Ti were all ran on the 390.77 driver. So now that we have all 5 of our weight classes laid out, you guys have the prices, the specs, and the knowledge about these 5 classes here. We're going to be taking a look at Fortnite. I really have no idea how I'm going to go about this next part, but I have never played Fortnite once. So I'm a Fortnite noob. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to try and make these benchmarks as comparable as possible against each graphics card, trying to drop in the same city and go to the same place at the same time, which is super difficult, but it should give us a rough estimate as how these cards perform and what you should expect from each of them, roughly.
In New York, calculating like a dork, bitch.
Kicking off our Fortnite Mega Benchmark section, we have the HD 5670 of the Bantamweight class. We ran the game at 720p medium/low settings with VSync, motion blur, and show grass all off. All in all, we had a really decent experience with this one. We got an average of 51.8 frames per second with a maximum of 74 and a minimum of 39. Taking into account the price, the single slot power connectless design, the low fan noise, 720p medium/low settings, the experience was fantastic. The barrier of entry to play Fortnite is astounding. This smacks PUBG on its ass. I swear this is my 4th game ever playing Fortnite. I didn't really know what I was doing yet, but the experience was fantastic and it didn't actually hold me back when I was playing whatsoever. Honestly, a fantastic display of a good game, a good engine, and really low-end entry hardware performing at its best.
My real life old dog, niggas know the threat. Feeling like Bishop in a motherfucking fish. Mommy ain't shit, daddy ain't shit. Fuck about me.
Fucking quarterback to 2 grams, but I'm a dip. I know you must have had it with my rude ass.
Next up, we have the Featherweight class with the GTX 550 Ti. We ran the game at the exact same settings as the 5670 to try and gauge the performance of what we were playing at last time. We played it at 720p with a mix of low and medium settings, and we ended up getting an average of 110.3 frames per second with a maximum of 182 and a minimum of 65. So pretty much as expected, the 550 Ti doubled the performance of the 5670. Even though the quality isn't that great, I really wanted to stress how the 5670 was performing, and this pretty much doubles it, giving you more FPS, more of an advantage. You could probably push 1080p at around 40 FPS. I didn't try it, so I can't tell you the exact numbers, but 720p is probably your best bet for the 550 Ti, and it was actually a super buttery smooth experience. At this point in the benchmarking, I was really starting to get into this game. It was really growing on me, and I didn't exactly get a kill yet, but I was getting there, and along with the FPS increasing, I was getting better as well.
Open the door, dip with a strap like straight up, I don't give a fuck. Down for it up. Down for it up.
Stepping up to the plate next, we have the GTX 570 of the lightweight class. Going from the 550 Ti to the 570 gives you a dramatic increase in resolution and settings. We ended up cranking the game up to 1080p on the medium settings. At those settings, we scored an average of 89.3 frames per second with a maximum of 107 and a minimum of 47. This GPU actually deliberately shook me in this performance. I could not believe what kind of numbers we were getting from this card. Not only was the resolution higher, but the frames per second were still maintained at 90. This GPU delivered such an amazing experience, it actually granted me my first ever kill in Fortnite. Me and my buddy Tez, he was helping me through this, trying to get me into the game as we were going along with the benchmarks, and we actually almost won. We were 1 kill away from winning the entire thing with this GPU. So an amazing experience. I loved it. And this is when it really brought me into the game. And I was like, this is an awesome game. And I left the card in on my benchmark rig, and me and Tez, we played for like 6 games after I was done. In my whole benchmarking area with my benchmark keyboard and all this crap, I just played and I had an amazing time. And honestly, I was telling him while we were playing, you know, this card is like $60 and I was having an amazing experience, and I completely forgot I was even playing on my benchmark rig, much less the 570. So hands down, the best experience yet. Stepping up, now we have the middleweight class with the GTX 760. We ran it with the exact same settings as the GTX 570, which is 1080p on the medium settings. I ended up scoring an average of 94.6 frames per second with a maximum of 120 and a minimum of 66. This experience was pretty good, and there was really no gripes with this one. I just find this card to be a little overpriced, and the performance I was getting from it actually wasn't up to my expectations. The GTX 570 actually had 5 less FPS. Give or take, the minimum was a little higher with this card, but I really did notice a difference. The GTX 760 just kind of disappointed me. After playing with the 570, I really couldn't tell the difference of what card I was on, so I'd probably go with the GTX 570 instead. Next up, we have the R9 380 of the heavyweight class. We ran the game at 1080p on the epic settings. I ended up getting an average score of 62.6 frames per second with a maximum of 85 and a minimum of 43. I thought the performance that I got on playing on the epic settings was a little disappointing, and I probably would have dropped it to medium and got like 200 FPS at this point. So if you have a 380 or something equivalent to that, I'd probably play on like medium or something. Me and this random dude on the internet, who I have no idea who he was, but I'm sure he was shitting his pants because what we were experiencing was insane. So we ran into this tiny ass building, and the thing was just shrinking in on us, and it just got perfect. It stopped shrinking right on the building. And I didn't have any game sound, so I didn't know what was going on because I was benchmarking. And the whole team that was outside, the last 2 teams, they literally were battling next to each other. Like, one was battling on one side of the wall and the other was battling on the other. So they were fighting, and then they actually blew up the wall, and I like shit my pants. Like, I didn't know what the hell to do. It was insane. And I was like, I get it now. This is why people are addicted to Fortnite. They're just addicted to this rush. So this is the last benchmark, and I was kind of disappointed with the 380, but medium settings with the 380 probably would have got you 200 FPS or so. But I just wanted to share my experience with this because my experience was really interesting during these games because I've never played Fortnite, as I said. I thought since I'm giving you guys all the information I really can about this stuff, I might as well give you information that I would normally discard. Now, fluidity in PC gaming is definitely a preference, but I wanted to lay out all the frame time graphs over a 10-minute session trying to go to the same place at the same time. Since the 570 felt to be the smoothest in-game, it actually showed to be the smoothest on the charts as well. The 570 and the 760 were essentially getting the same frame rate, but the frame times were wildly different across the platform. I found that very interesting since the 760, despite having the frame time graph in front of me, actually felt the most juddery. Do what you will with this information, but I thought this would be really interesting before I came to my conclusion. Alright guys, let's do a TLDR and pick out the performance of each of these GPUs really quick before we wrap this up. So the HD 5670 was A-okay. It's a good entry level card if you're just looking to try Fortnite out, maybe not break the bank. 5670 is a good option. 550 Ti on the other hand is a little overpriced. Find it on a deal, it might be okay. The GTX 570 is one of the hardest hitting price performance GPUs I've seen in years, guys. This is the new 560 Ti. If you guys find this out in the wild and or on eBay for a bargain, pick this thing up. I can't recommend it enough. Let's just imagine you guys are out and you guys are picking up a 2500K system, right? You go online, you pick up a 600 watt power supply for like 20 bucks, okay? Then you go out, you pick this bad boy up, 60 bucks. That's the price of a AAA game with microtransactions filled in it, but you get an actual performing card that slams Fortnite. You slap this in your system, you get gaming that same day, and you guys are off and running with an amazing performance for under the price of a AAA microtransaction ridden video game in 2018. That is one hell of a fucking deal, and you guys need to snatch this bad boy up. The GTX 760 is a little overpriced since people are kind of looking for them. If you find it on a deal, it might be okay, but do remember it is a little quieter than the 570, so you do have that. The R9 380 isn't really a viable option right now. It's a little overpriced, it's a little sought after. Just kind of pass on it. Get you a $60 GPU to throw it in and get in the game, guys. So that's going to do it for my huge, in-depth mega GPU review. So the valuable information that you guys put in the comments down below actually has an impact on my video, since one man made a comment about a video of mine and I made an entire video about it. So remember to slam the comment section, slam the like button, and check out my Patreon. I'm going to be doing huge new rewards on there, so check that out. Follow me on Twitter. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and remember, the GTX 570 is the new price performance king. So I'll see you again next time, guys. Hey, did you know that I started putting my GPU edits on a separate channel? Link in the description down below. Click on the screen to watch my latest video or a random video based on your recommended.